Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On today's episode, I'm joined by someone who truly sees the world through a different lens, both literally and creatively. Casey Fatchett is an award-winning wedding, event, and portrait photographer based in New York City. His stunning work has been featured in New York Magazine Weddings, The Not Wedding Magazine, Platinum Weddings New York, and so many more. But Casey's not just a master behind the camera. He's also the host of the Nerdy Photographer Podcast, where he dives deep into the stories, business, and beautiful chaos of the photography world. Today we're talking about mental health, creativity, storytelling, and what it really takes to make a moment last forever. So let's get into it.
My name is Casey Fatchett. I currently live in northern New Jersey, right outside of New York City. I lived in New York for 20 years. Before that, I grew up in Michigan and was around the Midwest. I decided to move to New York many years ago in the previous century, previous millennium, to become an actor. I was going to, do the acting thing. I got a degree in theater. I got a degree in journalism. I headed out here, and I had my day job. I was doing acting work. I was getting work. I was paying my bills, not necessarily all of them as an actor. I was doing a lot of voiceover work. But one of the things that I also did, like on the side to make money, was do headshots for other actors, because I had always had an interest in photography. My mother bought me some old film cameras. Actually, I have it sitting right here on my desk. It's my first camera I ever owned. It's the Minolta SRT 101, and I've mentioned this before to other people. She found it in an estate sale. I had a 50 1.7, 135 2.8, and a 28 2.8. I really didn't know how good I had it as a teenager, like as far as my lenses went. But I moved out here. I was doing headshots for other actors. I was doing promo photos for bands and live shows for bands. And let me tell you, nothing teaches you lighting faster than photographing live band shows on film, because I had two camera bodies, so I had two film speeds, and that's it. Like, there's no switching, flipping the dial and going up to 3200 or 6400 ISO. Like, you were stuck with what you had. And the acting stuff, I was, like I said, I was actually getting hired a lot, and I was making some money, and then I ran into like two big, like, this is a break. This is the next level stuff. This is where you start, like, being a working actor, hopefully, things. And they were really long. I don't know if you want me to get into it. One of them was the Geico Gecko, the voice of the Geico Gecko. And the original guy who did the voice had a very British accent. It was very light. It was very high. His contract was up. He wanted more money. They decided they wanted to get somebody to sound exactly like him, who would cost less money. But still, it's a regular gig, and it paid a lot. It was enough to live off of for probably, even at that time. So I went in 7 times. And every time they told me, I would say, can I try something different? Can I do a different thing? I'd like to try this. And they'd be like, no, you sound exactly like him. This is perfect. And I'm like, okay, well, what's next? And the last time they came in, it was me and 2 other guys. And I looked at one guy and I was like, what's going on here, man? Like, how many times did you come in? And they were like 5, 6 times, whatever. And I said, they keep having me just do the same thing. And then one guy looks at me and goes, yeah, I keep doing the same, like, sounding like the previous guy. And they're just like, thanks. And they won't let me do anything else. And then the third guy goes, yeah, I can't even do an English accent. I don't know why they keep bringing me back. They brought us into a room to tell us that the guy who couldn't do the accent got the job because he did something totally different. Because he just blew their minds with something different. And I was just like, what?
Welcome to the world of acting.
Yeah, and it was sort of like, what do you mean? Like, you wouldn't give me a chance to do something different. And there's actually one of the Geico commercials. The guy is in it, and they actually address that nobody can really tell what the accent is. And I was just like, oh man, that guy made millions off of that, off of not being able to do it. But it's such a metaphor for how people perceive art in general, and the other one was the movie Vanilla Sky. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I am.
Tom Cruise film. There's a guy who shows up throughout the movie in a blue suit and says cryptic things to Tom Cruise, and then at the end has this huge exposition scene where he kind of explains everything that's going on to Tom Cruise. Again, they brought me in 6 times, and I keep having to take off of work, like off my day job, like to go in. They're filming me. I'm like, am I going to be screen testing with Tom at some point here? Because like, what's going on? Again, 6th time I go in. I said like, hey, what's are we doing chemistry tests here at some point, or what's going on with this? And they're like, we love your look and the way that you're doing this and all of the energy that you're giving us this, but you're too tall because I'm 6 feet tall and Tom Cruise is like 5'6". I've met him. He comes up to like my chest, and he has to appear as tall as every other person in the frame. And since every scene that I would be in would be directly with Tom Cruise, that would add a level of difficulty to filming. And I was just like, I did not get any shorter every time I came in here.
Yeah.
In fact, it's on my resume how tall I am. So there's a part of me that just felt like, okay, you guys are just wasting my time. And like, it got really aggravating. That was the thing that I hated the most about it creatively, because it was just like, I'd done all these things where like, oh, see it as a performance and whatever, and all these like tricks to it and make bold choices. And I've been doing that. And I've been doing it for years. And I mean, I had already had now at this point, my photography was like my side business. I was doing other things. I had, at that point, gotten into weddings because I was stupid, and didn't know how to run a business, and was just thinking from the perspective of being an actor and going, hey, summers tend to be pretty slow unless you get in with a theater company or you get on a movie or something that's shooting in the summer. And I would know that ahead of time if that was coming up. So I thought, oh, I can make money in the summer on the weekends shooting weddings. And I went and did my first wedding. And I fell in love with it. Like, just there's a real, as an actor, there's a real performative energy to it. Like, it's like you get one shot to do it. You have to improvise sometimes, all of these different things. And so many people in the wedding industry are formerly theater people. So yeah, I fell in love with that. I was doing that, and then when the kind of the passion got, I keep trying to think of the word, drained from the acting, I stuck around and did things because I was also a fight choreographer. I just started doing like fight choreography stuff, and I would do acting gigs when somebody called me. Like, I just didn't want to audition anymore. If somebody knew me, like I was still getting voice work. People who were just really, really familiar with me would call and say like, "Oh, we want Casey," and I'd be like, "Okay, I'll show up and do anything." Other one, oh, I forgot the third one that was really the trifecta. I was the voice of AMC for a while, and they dumped me for Tom Hanks.
That Tom Hanks guy.
Like, he needs the money.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
yeah, like he needs money. It was a great paying gig. It was regular. And I was like Tom Hanks needs the cash from AMC. Like, this was a job that was like paying my bills and, that sort of stuff in there. And I can't compete with Tom Hanks. Like, he's obviously, and who knows if it was him or his brother at that point, like because he gives his brother all the like voice gigs. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like,
Insider secrets.
yeah, his brother does like the voice, like the animated series of Toy Story. He does all of that stuff. He does all the stuff for like Disneyland, like all the Toy Story stuff, and like anything that he does. Like, there's a bunch of stuff. He like his brother will come in and do
Oh, wow.
audio work because they sound exactly the same. Um, but yeah, I was like, man, does he need the money? I don't, I need the money. So that was another like sort of depressing moment for me in the acting world, and that sort of pushed me to like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to the photography stuff. That's going to be. I've been doing it sort of like I had the business, but I said, you know what, I'm going to go full into this. Also, again, I was kind of dumb. I had never run a business before. I certainly hadn't run a photography business. I didn't understand how much of a service industry it really is from the business side of it. And this was still back when, I mean, I was still going in. I was doing all sorts of stuff. I really hadn't like decided to like fully go into weddings as my main niche. I was still doing fashion stuff and occasionally doing a lot of portraits, headshots still, and sometimes like commercial stuff, events. It was just like I was a generalist, and um, I eventually decided, like I gotta niche down a little bit so I can focus my marketing efforts and get people hiring me because it was just like it felt like I was scrambling constantly all the time, like hustling to get jobs, and that led to its own anxiety. I mean, I had always had like been an anxious person, and that is sort of like that constantly hustling for the gig. It was very similar to acting in that sense that what's the next job? I got to get the next job. I got to get the next job.
Yeah, always looking to be one or two steps ahead, trying to plan out the bills that you're going to pay with that income that's coming in from this one, kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's kind of where I'm at currently. I'm in the same boat. I'm trying to figure out how do you scale something that's working, it's being successful, but how do you scale it so that success that you're having can financially help your family or financially help you? And you're like, I don't even know. I'm just at the point where, you know what, you want me to say something for you? Just give me a dollar figure and I'll tell you how long I'm going to say those words for.
The sort of the thing that really helped me understand how to run the business side of it, I decided like I'm going to take a couple of classes, a couple of business classes, and that helped me immensely. I didn't take any sort of like photography business classes. I do a lot both on my show and like social media, YouTube, whatever things like where I'm giving business advice to people. And I really try to focus it from this is business advice. It will work for any business. This is how it applies to photography because I've taken workshops and things for photography business. And there's always, it just feels like it's this never ending. Then you got to sign up for my next class, and then you got to sign up for the next class. When I give you this is when I'm going to give you the real information. Like, and I'm just throwing this stuff out there. Like, I may eventually charge for like more in-depth stuff, but I'm always like, here's some information that's really going to help you, and that's why. And this applies to any business because I didn't know that stuff when I started out. I really could have used that. That's why I feel like it's really important to talk about, like, hey, if you want to run this as a business, you're going to need to do this stuff. You're going to need to, keep track of your books. I had this stupid ass spreadsheet. Like I was running everything off a spreadsheet for a long time. Like, oh, this is my business expense tab, and this is my income tab, and whatever. That's how I was doing things, and like eventually getting a CRM and all those sorts of things. Like really, that helped me scale up to be able to handle more quantity and still give my clients the quality that I felt, my brand, this is what I've built. Like the quality that I built because I was struggling a lot with like trying to keep up with all the work. And I was just like, oh, there are automated things I can do. Like I use a service called Pixify. There's like whatever, 17 hats and Honeybook and all these other things out there for like client relationship management, CRM. And it was just such an eye opener. I went through a few before I settled on the one that I eventually used, but like it, so much weight sort of dropped off my shoulders because I was able to automate messages to people like, here's your invoice. Here's the things like I would like go in at the beginning, create the invoice. There's scheduled payments, and I spend 5 minutes on it instead of like having to like put a reminder in my Google Calendar or whatever and say like, hey, you got to remind so and so to pay you on X date, and then like hunting them down. My software, like my this software, is like sending out the emails and saying like, hey, you still owe money. Week goes by, you haven't paid. Here's the link again to your invoice, so that I wasn't spending all of my time doing it, and that freed me up to do the more creative stuff, which is the stuff that I want to do. It's much like the acting thing was like the stuff I didn't like doing was the kind of like businessy, you know, hey, come look at me, like hire me, hire me, hire me. I love doing the job. I think it's still the thing with the photography. Whatever it is, I love going to do the shoot. I think that's all photographers love that part. Um,
Yes, we
but
do.
yeah, and it's just like like getting to focus more on the things that like I enjoyed.
Yeah.
It was a huge difference for me. Like that was a life changing thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a learning process for sure. You've got to figure it out. And, I'm only a year into this. So it's every day is something new. Every day is finding. I've learned now that I no longer look at numbers. I don't really care how many people listen to the show because I'm going to continue to do it. This
Right.
is something I love to do. So, you know, every once in a while you get those little reminders, those little highlights that pop into your email like, hey, your show's been listened to about 500 more people than normal or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? And that's to just fuel to the fire. But it's, if you don't have that solid foundation or that business background, you're going to be in trouble. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out how to,
Scale up.
yeah, and how to make my life easier.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that really helped me, like I said, was like creating a system for things. Whether it's for my podcast, whether it's for work, whatever, is having like those things that can do intake of data, whether it's for a guest on my show, whether it's for a client, like, oh, like take in this so that I'm not spending like, okay, I'm gonna have 5 emails back and forth, like for this information. I'm just gonna have a form that captures that info and like puts it into my software or whatever so that I don't even have to like type it in.
Yeah.
That stuff helped me a lot because as someone who suffers from anxiety and depression, like my mind tends to swirl and spiral on things. And I get way too focused. Like I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed by all of that information and all of those things to do. Like, oh, I've got to transcribe all of this info into something else, and like, and this was, I mean, another thing that I think that people who suffer from anxiety will understand is the perfectionism,
Yep.
and it's just an excuse to kind of like keep from putting things out there. It's like this has to be perfect because if it's not perfect, I can always say, oh, it wasn't finished yet. I wasn't done with it. I can always use that excuse, and um, it really, it was something that early in my photography career, when it came to my website, I was constantly redoing my website. And I was just, oh, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. And I was like, perfect is the enemy of good. Is good. Like this is good enough. I need to have it like, yes, you can have something that's good enough to put out there, and you can hone it a little bit afterwards. But like just getting over that hump of not feeling like it's never good enough was a huge thing for me, and that took me years. And there's still sometimes, man, like eh, I'm self-conscious, anxious person, and I'm trying to do reels. There was like my most popular reel ever on Instagram. I think now has 3.5 million views. Which when I was doing it, I had come up with the idea, and I was trying to do it, and I kept starting over again because I was just like I was looking at the video of myself and I was not happy with it. And my wife just walked into the room and she was like, "Stop! I will record you. Just do the thing. Just do it. Do it." And I walked through it, did it, and she's like, "Post it. Don't sit with it," because that was the enemy of it was in my own head. Um, was stopping me from doing things like, oh, this isn't good enough. I haven't edited it properly. Whatever. Like it is. It's one of those things I think that people starting out in photography have a fear that what they're doing is not good enough to put out there, that it is not achieved, that they are not at the level of someone else, that they have arbitrarily chosen to use as the yardstick or guidepost for whatever is quote unquote good. Um,
Yes, well, they're doing it, and if I'm not as good as them, then why?
yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
the famous questions.
Oh yeah. Comparison is the death of joy. And it's just like you can't like you stop enjoying what you're doing because you're always thinking like, well, I'm not as good enough. I'm not as good as so and so. Well, you know what? You don't know what so and so went through.
Yep.
Like, and this is like I'm going to talk about this because it's a lesson that I still deal with, but I've gotten better at over the years. Is like stop it, like because I will still find myself falling into the trap of going like, oh man, like my work isn't as good as so and so. I'm like, well, you know what? So that person has been doing this type of photography. I'm like talking like I look at my macro, like this is something that I do just for me. Like I'm not doing it for a client, like flower photos. And it's like something that I've always done just like for me. I've never really focused on it or like really worked at it that much. And I recently have like, okay, this is a more Zen activity and this is more kind of like to get my to calm my brain and just do something creative. I'm going to do this and I can focus a little more attention on it and learn some new techniques. But there's like the part of my brain also that goes like, oh, you're not as good as this person. And I go, well, that person's been doing it for 20 years. This is their job. This is what they've focused on. They are, like this is their thing. This is the main thing that they do. And they've really put their time and effort into it. And I stop and go like, oh yeah, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
everybody, like, yeah, everybody has a different journey. And a lot of times I find people like comparing themselves to people who've been at it for 10, 15, 20 years when they're like 6 months into it and they're like going, oh man, how am I ever going to get there?
Well, it's like starting and comparing yourself to someone like, who's the number one podcast usually? Joe Rogan, right? Like trying to compare yourself with someone starting to him,
Fresh air,
right?
Jerry Gross. Yeah, like something, car talk. One of those things that used to be the big one. Yeah, it's just sort of like you start out and you think that I've got to be at the top from the beginning. I've got to be comparable to that person at the beginning or that output. And it's just like, no, hey, you don't. You don't. And from a creative sense, if you're running a business as a photographer, I think that one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, like there's always this, like people will be like, oh, you only have to get 1% of the audience or of your audience that you're marketing towards um, to succeed.
Yeah.
That'll be enough work for you if you just get 1%. You only have to get 1%. Well, that gives you the sense that you're throwing a huge net into a very big ocean and hoping to get one fish. Instead, what you should focus on is getting 100% of the 1% of people who are going to want to hire you or who are going to want to listen to your show. Like those are the people that you need to focus on. You need to find out and hone your image of who that person is and go after that person instead of going, hey, everybody, and hoping that the one person that will like what you do will find you. You got to say like, hey, you, 1% people, we jive.
Yeah.
We're reviving on each other and like, let's get together. Let's make this connection happen. And that was another big stepping stone for me business wise, because once I did that, I figured out I attracted clients who were kind of like me. I don't like having my picture taken, which is weird as somebody who was a former actor, but like I think that it's just um, it's easy for me if I have a character to perform for the camera or for
Yeah.
whatever. When it's just me, I have an issue with like one-on-one meeting somebody I don't know. Once I've met somebody, we've talked, whatever, we get to know each other, I'm totally fine. It's the one-on-one connection with someone I have never talked to before, which
Now, do
is,
you think that's you just being hypercritical of you?
yeah.
I think that's why we connected so well on when I was on your show, is because you've been doing this substantially longer than I have, podcast wise, photography wise, and some of the things that I was saying, you were like, "Yeah, dude, I remember those days, and I still have those moments." And I think that's what's so important, and I don't think enough people understand when you're fresh, when you're just getting into something, and you are hypercritical of everything you do. You judge everything you do. You look at your photos, you put them against everybody else. You put your podcast up against everybody else, and you sit there and you beat yourself up. It makes it really hard to take the next step, and then when you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, people enjoy what I'm doing. Maybe I can step it down. And then you take that moment of as a break, and then you're like instantly in your head again. You're like, oh, now what? Well, these people are going to forget about my show, and you're trying to keep that engagement. And last week I had Ruben Radding on, and he said the greatest thing is he's like, we have to stay out of our ego. If we can stay out of our ego and focus on the art in front of us, life is substantially better. Those were words that I took to heart from my conversation with him, and they're so true. So that's my personal goal from this point forward, is to work on trying to stay out of my own ego, which I'll be honest, I suffer from, because I get frustrated. I'm like, man, well, I thought my show was better than that one. Like, why is that one got so many more followers? Or why is that one getting, the financial opportunities? So I sit there and it's not that I'm upset that they're doing it. It's like, I'm upset with myself because I haven't figured out how to put myself in their position.
Yeah, that is and I'm going to start with the photography side of it. There's two things that I see happening a lot. And the first one is, people starting out who feel like, if I get the recipe to this photo, I can create this photo, and then I will be a successful photographer.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah, exactly. I had an interview with J.C. Carey, who's a photographer. He's a representative for Westcott, and we were talking about teaching process over recipe. Like, you have to understand the process. And it's the one thing that I always try to explain to people online, or when I'm teaching or doing anything or talking to them, like, you have to understand the things that go into this, so that, like, and why we talk about rules or like of composition or anything like that is so that, yes, you can break them at some point, but you need to understand it first. And like, you need to understand the exposure triangle, because if you don't understand it, you don't know how like everything affects each other. Like, you'll see these people who are like, here's my settings that I use. I use f11, ISO 400, 100, 1/200th of a second, blah, blah, like, for this shot. And then you'll see like all these people in the comments going like, I tried those settings and it didn't come out like that. Like, yeah, because everything's different. Like, everything else is different. Like, you don't know you need to understand what goes into it, like, thought process wise. Like, why did I choose those settings in this scenario?
Yeah.
You can then, like, but there's this sort of, like, I think that for people who are, like you were saying, fresh into this, there's a sort of like, I want to jump up to that level. Like, I want to get to where that person is. So just tell me what your settings were, and that's going to get me there. That's not what's going to get you there.
Or buy my preset. I'll buy their preset, and why doesn't it look the same?
Yeah, that's like the thing that's so, I find that really, like, I've made my own presets over the years to like get certain looks and things, and like put the time into it, and like, this is for me. And people are like, oh, can I buy your preset? I'm like, no, No, you can't because
Yeah.
it's fine. This is my special sauce for my
I
client.
use the same. Like I do it as well. I have my own preset that allows my photos because I shoot pretty much the same way no matter what to have a certain look when they come into my system. Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't sugarcoat it. My stuff isn't for everybody. I like very vibrant, bright colors. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's what newbies do." Nah, man, I just like that, and that's how it's going to be. I'm sorry if you don't understand.
Yeah, and you can evolve over time. This is another thing that I think that okay, well, I'm going to go back to what we were saying. Like, I think the other thing that I think people are hypercritical of themselves. Again, like you're saying, like I'm as good as that person. I think my photos are as good as so and so's. Why am I not getting the work? Why am I not getting hired like they are? Why am I not booked as often? Whatever. And that was like a thing that I dealt with. I think when I started to get, in my opinion, good at wedding photography, I would start looking out at some people and going, why am I not getting booked for these jobs? Why can't well, you know what? That is the business and marketing side of it. That does not have to like it's something that has come up over and over again on my show is the more financially successful photographers are not always the best or most creative photographers. They're good at business. They are good at marketing. They are good at people skills, interpersonal things that they are able to sell to people. It is not necessarily like in coming to that understanding. I think you learn those skills. Those are things you can learn how to do. Some people are just naturally very good at it, but you will see once you start to see that and going like, and being able to separate those things can be such a burden lifted from your mental health because you're just sitting there. If you can stop comparing yourself to them and going like, oh, why are they booking? Well, you know what? They're just good at the business side of it and getting booked
Yeah,
and convincing their clients that what they provide, the service that they provide, and you don't know what the experience is like hiring them. Maybe that's why people are hiring them. It's the experience that they get. For me, I decided to focus on again people who are critical of themselves in photos, and I found out that I am very good at making people feel comfortable having their photo taken, getting their mind off of having their photo taken so that they can just be themselves. When it's a couple, that they can just like relax and we're seeing the interaction between them and that's what's naturally happening instead of saying like, stand here, look over there, whatever. And then like the life goes out of them. But I'm very good at making them feel comfortable. And that's how I get my style of photos like that. And so that's when I said like, when I was getting that feedback from my clients who were saying, well, you made us feel really relaxed. And we love how we look in these, like that we look like ourselves and we don't look like somebody who's trying to pose. And I was like, oh, okay. Ding. Like the light bulb goes off. I start focusing my marketing efforts in that direction. Like, hey, I'm going to make it. And now it's become a big thing in like weddings, like authenticity. But it's like been my thing for like 15 years or more. Has always been like, real. Like you're going to be really you. Like, and
yeah,
that's what we're trying to capture here. Um, and so that's what I was trying to like getting people. Then like then it became more steady. That's when the work became steady because then like those people were then referring me to other people. They're giving me great reviews. That's how I got all that stuff coming in. And I can't remember what we were talking about. Otherwise, I was trying. They wanted to make sure that I got that part in. Um, yeah, I can't remember.
the joys.
I like backed the train of thought up to like stay back on that other track, and then I forgot where the other destination was.
Yeah, sounds like my life in a nutshell. Uh, you know, how do you view your art, your creativity as a positive towards your mental health?
Oh, I think that it's such it's a relief of the tension that builds up. Um, Looking at it and like a from a from my work like I get paid for, um, I look at it as providing a service that, like, in my wife will often say to me, like, you're in the wedding stuff, you're capturing this moment that's going to be with them forever, and like seeing people like decade or more later. I've been doing this for 25 years, like, or more later, seeing like as their profile picture on social media or whatever, and it's just like that photo means so much to those people. That photo, like, and at another level, it's the remembering people who are gone, and it's something that I knew was a thing because, like, I had people contact me and say, like, "Oh, my grandmother passed away. We absolutely love the photo you took of my grandmother at our wedding. Could we possibly get this?" And I'm like, "You don't have to pay for it. I'm going to pay for that print. I'm going to send it to you." Um, that the image that I made means that much to them and encapsulates that person to them, and that they want it there. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of that. But after my parents passed away, like seeing all the photos I'd taken of them or other photos of them, like how much that, the weight of that. Um, so like my using my creativity to document those sort of things for my business purposes um, feels like an honor, like to me, and that's one of the things that, like, when I'm feeling down, um, I will go back through my like list of reviews. Like I've got like a bunch of like great reviews and look there and like read those things and remember who those people are and remember those weddings and just like go like, or whatever the job was, and just think about like this really had an impact
Yeah.
on somebody else. From a personal perspective, for the things that I do just for myself, it's a Zen activity. It is something that helps me get into the moment and um, get my head out of being anxious.
Yep.
When I'm that's and I think that that's part of like in the last year I've spent more time going back through my archives of things I shot, because I would go out and do these things and just like take pictures of stuff and then do nothing with the photos because I'm working
Yep.
and I'm editing the photos for work, and then I've got to do this other thing, and then I've got to edit my podcast, and then I've got to like like be doing the marketing and all these other things. So I don't necessarily really have the time, and I've started carving out the time to go through those things. And I I think that there at the time I was just doing it to have this thing to do that really made me feel connected to the moment, and that helped a lot, um, mental health wise. And I think that what's happened in the time, in like the last year or so, of going through those photos, I'm talking photos from like 20 years ago, sometimes longer, and there and like obviously there's some duds, but there's some really good stuff in there. Like I'd kind of pull them out and look at them going, damn, I'm actually a pretty good photographer. Um, and just being able to take that moment now, years later, like not comparing it to anybody else, and just knowing my journey and looking at these photos and going like, is it the best photo ever? No, but it's a pretty good picture. That's a pretty good picture. And like looking at something like a picture I took, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and then going like, you know what? I'm going to start working on. I'm been actively in the last 3 or 4 years been actively like creating more projects for myself to do outside of work, because it just helps how I like my general well-being.
And I think that's such an important connection. Everybody has to have an outlet, whether it's, some people like to watch TV. That's their outlet. For me, it's creating my art and learning lessons along the way. If I don't think I've taken a meaningful picture in easily over a month,
Mm.
but I still click the shutter.
You might think that now.
right? And I might come back to them and be like, wow, look at those. But we all need to have an outlet that allows us to escape anything that's troubling, you know? And like I said, some people like TV, some people go to concerts, some people they like to just go for walks or hikes or ride a bike. For me, it's my camera, and that's what I use to escape
Yeah.
and try not to make it a job.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. Like that is totally a thing. Um, Sometimes people will say to me, like, because I do events, friend event is happening, and I'm like, "Oh, bring your camera," and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
I'm bringing my camera." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because I don't want it to feel like work.
Yep.
Because then it's like, oh, I've got to go and edit these afterwards, or I've got to do whatever." If I'm just feeling like, hey, if you didn't say it, I might bring my camera. But as soon as somebody says, "Hey, bring your camera," it's the feeling of like, oh, now this is a job, and I'm like turned off.
Yep.
Like, and I completely agree with you. Like, you need something outside of. This is why I tell people who are running a photography business that you can do elements of photography that don't make you money. Like, you don't have to monetize every type of photography you do, and also have a hobby outside of photography. There's something you should always have something that is not photography related, especially if you're doing it as a business. Um, but I started working on a project a year ago with film that I found in my parents' basement after they died that had expired. Some of it had expired in the 90s, some of it had expired in the early 2000s, some in the teens. Um, and for a lot of whatever reasons, and I'm kind of a romantic when it comes to film, and feel like, oh, the photons that bounced off of that person or that subject or whatever, like went through this film and caused a reaction. And there's just like, their energy is somehow trapped in that film. And so I started doing this thing because I frequently hike with my dog, like try to go out at least 3 times a week hiking with my dog. And I'm like, I know my time with my dog is limited. I don't know how many years we've got.
Yep.
Um, so I just decided like I was going to start documenting our walks, like our hikes in the woods. Um, so that I had a document of it to come back to at whatever point, but also it's sort of like the feeling of this is my parents' film. That they're playing a part in this. I'm sort of resurrecting this film, um, and the project changed over time. Like it's just like it like also became like more about my connection with my dog than necessarily about the going out for a walk. And then other things started to happen. Like I took a role and I had shot it, and I took it in to get developed, and apparently it had already been shot.
Oh, weird.
Like it had been like when it got rewound, like the tab was still hanging out. And I had just thought like, oh, this hasn't been used. My mother had shot this entire roll of film, and she used to take pictures of like our house in the winter, like the house I grew up in, like the trees, like the pine trees, just like covered in snow and stuff like that. And she would cut out these things and like use them in her. She handmade greeting cards for people, whatever, and like did other crafty stuff. And she would use her photos in that.
Oh, cool.
So like I got this developed, and it came back, and I'm like, wait, this is our house. We sold the house years ago after they had passed, and I'm looking at them and going, oh my god, my mother took these photos. And so it's also like another like thing in that project that like gives me a lot of like I am a very introspective person. Um, so it's both a good thing in the sense of that you can go back and look at your own thoughts, but also you can get lost in there and over analyze yourself. But that project has like given me a lot of catharsis and a lot of like it has really brought my creativity back, which was very low after my parents passed away because I was severely depressed. um, that it brought that back in a way that it hadn't been there, and now I'm feeling like recharged. Like this is like I feel like my life is at a new point, like a turning point in my creativity. Even though I'm turning 50 this year, and it's like this is like half of my life is I've been a professional photographer. I feel like there's a new turn and like going in a new direction and feeling really positive about it, which is, I feel good. Like it's a place I don't know if I've ever truly been, and it takes a
That's
lot of work to get there.
that's so good to hear, right? Like when I lost my dad, we hadn't really been communicating 10 years for 10 years. We had a big falling out, turned into straight fist fight. Um, but I was finally just done with all the bullshit and I was going to stand up for myself. But he wasn't, you know, I think my daughter, when he met my oldest daughter, she was 3 already. He had no clue. And I just made this conscious decision, December of 98, that, you know what, we're just going to drive to my dad's in Portland and we're just going to show up. And let's just see what happens. He may tell us to leave. He may embrace us. I'm not sure, but let's just try it. We showed up. He opened the door. He looked at me, huge smile on his face. And I was like, oh, hey, Dad, this is my wife. This is my daughter. And I really wanted you to meet them. And I'm not sure what made me want to make that happen so strongly that I had to like just drop everything and go. So we had a great time. We were there for a week. We spent time. My dad and I decided we'd be friends because the father-son dynamic didn't work. I left, we came back home to Canada, and my dad and I were talking all the time, and we decided, hey, we're in May, we're going to go away. We're going to go on a big salmon fishing trip. And, so everything was good. He called me. I was going away to do an event. He called me on the Wednesday, and I was like, oh, I'm just heading out this weekend, but when I get back, let's plan this. And I got a call that Friday when I had just made it to the destination that my dad had died. And still, I'm 50 now, and I can't forget what happened to me as a child and the traumas that I still suffer from and I'm learning to work through now. But I can forgive him because the world has evolved and we understand PTSD. And, my dad was a Vietnam vet. And I'm not making excuses for his actions. I'm just letting people know that moments with parents, moments with kids, moments with family, they come and go, and they go quicker than they come.
Yeah.
So I was grateful that I reconnected with my father, but I was very mad at myself that I took 10 years to be the one that reached out and did it. So it was like, it's a catch-22 is really what it is. I was trying to just hold my boundaries. Mm. And then when I decided I don't want boundaries anymore, I want him to meet these people. We did it. And then things were good. And then he was gone. So it's a weird scenario.
And you blame yourself for not going earlier. Like we missed time. I don't know. As your friend, I would say it's okay to have boundaries, and you knew when you were ready to let him back in, and you had a positive experience afterwards.
Yeah.
Who knows if you had gone earlier, whether or not that the rest of that experience would have been positive. You can't tell. And that's the end. I feel guilty. My parents were in Michigan, and I lived for 20 years before. 20. How long? Between the time that I moved away from Michigan and the time they died, it's 23 years. And I spent a lot of time away from them, where we only saw each other maybe a few times a year.
Yeah.
And when they passed away, there was a real guilt of, did I spend enough time? Like, should I have been here more often? And um, it's a, I don't know. You gotta have your own life too.
Yeah.
That's what I will say as your friend and as someone who's been through a, I don't know. It's a trauma. It's a trauma. Losing your parents is a trauma. Mine passed away within 2 weeks of each other.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah,
Sorry to hear that, man.
it was, yeah. I mean, my dad had been sick for like 10 years. He had leukemia. He had like a very rare form of leukemia. And the doctors had been able to like keep his quality of life pretty good. Like he was doing well for many years. And then he got pneumonia and like he started to like his quality of life started uh, getting less, and you could see that was happening. And then, like my mom called me. This is during the pandemic, and she said, like, "Hey, I just want to let you know your dad decided to end treatment, so he's not going to get treatment. So we're calling hospice." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "I'm getting in the car right now. Like my wife and I are getting in the car, and we're driving to Michigan. We will be there as soon as we get there, but like leaving probably within an hour after this phone call ends." And we got there, and my mom had, for my entire life, it had like waist length hair. I was referred to as Crystal Gale hair. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yep.
Crystal Gale, the singer. She had Gale hair, beautiful, long, waist length hair. Um, and I walked in the door, and she looked like Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like short, buzz cut, gray. And she just goes, "Yeah, it's terminal." That's all she said to me. And I was like, what? And she's like, "Yeah, they said maybe 2 months." And that's why my dad had said, "I don't want to get treatment anymore," because he didn't want to be without her.
Yeah.
Um, and then we had about a week, not quite a week, few days with him before he passed. And then 2 weeks after that, she passed away. And in between that, my uncle passed away, like directly in between the two of them.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
it was crazy. It was hard. But like I said, that really like sapped my creativity to a level of like zero. Like it was negative. I mean, there was like people. It was hard. It was good for me that it was the pandemic and I wasn't working a lot, um, because I just don't know how I would have handled it mentally. But then like afterwards, when I was getting back into work, I'm just like, I feel like I've got nothing in the tank.
Yeah.
Like all of my energy has gone. Um, and it was the giving myself little, like starting small and giving myself little creative things to do that helped build back up to a level where I thought, like, I can do this again.
Yeah.
And it's been 5 years, and I'm, like I said, I'm just now feeling like I've really gotten back to 100% creatively, um, where I can, and where actually feel better than I did before creatively.
That's awesome, man. Like that just shows like the human being is so durable, but there's a process to it.
Hmm.
Sometimes you'll try to force yourself back and that actually hinders you more. So if you stick to it and you just slowly bring yourself back into it, you're doing yourself a good service by allowing the creativity to start to spark and speak for itself.
Yeah, and I think that it's sort of the accepting of, we grieve for many reasons. We grieve things. We grieve the loss of people. Obviously, we grieve the loss of relationships. We grieve so many different things, and that mourning has such an effect on us creatively. Some people, it like sparks creativity. Like I need to do, like some people are like furiously creative. I know that like there are times when I was young that it like when I would get depressed, I think it was also how my anxiety worked with my depression at that point in time. It made me like furiously creative. Like, oh, I've got to like get this out. I've got to get this stuff out, and I've got to create stuff. I think as I've gotten older, it's been more of like a ooh, like retain the energy. You do not have the energy of youth.
Yeah.
You need to like conserve and like pick and choose where you're going to spend your energy. Um, but yeah, we like grieve all of these different things, and it has an effect on our creativity. And um, I think that when we accept that it's a process
Yeah.
and that it's not going to just be over on some timetable, that is what helps us get back to a creative place. And the best advice that I got as far as mourning and grief and just the pain of it, it's just like there's the pain to it, and was that when it starts out, like imagine a box and there's a button at the bottom of the box that is the pain when you're like really feeling it, feeling the hurt, whatever. And there's a ball in the box. In the beginning, the ball is the same size as the box, and it's constantly pressing down on that button. But as time goes by, the ball gets smaller, and it's just bouncing around the box, and occasionally hits the button. And obviously, when the bigger the ball is, the more often it's hitting the button. And it gets to the point where the ball is very small, but it still hurts as much when the ball hits the button. And I think it's the understanding that when you are feeling uncreative, when you are feeling hurt for whatever reason, whether you're grieving or just you hurting, because there's all sorts of ways to hurt in this world. Um, that understanding that hurt's valid, but also that you can that you have the ability, once you sort of like let it process, to turn it into something else, and that occasionally, like, it doesn't mean that the pain is going to, like, the next time you feel the pain, that it's going to be less painful necessarily. It can still be just as painful as it was before, but like you don't feel it as often as you once did. um, and using that, the space that time gives you to find your creativity again.
Very well said.
Occasionally I manage to come up with to turn a phrase.
Oh, man. Well, we're at that point where, do you have any wisdom that you can share with people? Things that you've learned that help you avoid certain pitfalls in your journey of being a artist, photographer, podcast host, things like that.
um Pitfalls to avoid. I've brought it up already. Comparing yourself, and it's like, again, the lesson that I am still learning. Like, it doesn't mean that this, like, again, this is it doesn't necessarily go away, but you need to tell yourself more quickly over time, like that. Hey, you're always going to sit there and go like, oh, wow, Tyson, took such a great photo, whatever. And I'm sitting there like, why can't I get a shot like that? And the quicker that you can turn that back to be like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. He's doing his own thing. I love you. I support you. Great for Tyson. Good for me for like figuring out that I don't have to worry about what you're doing. I don't have to worry about it. I can be supportive of you. This is something that creatives of all genres can learn to do. The podcast community has been incredibly supportive of me over the years, and which is one of the reasons I am super supportive of other people. I have friends in all sorts of genres of podcasting that I am always like, pump them up, like pump everybody up, like
Yep.
help people out. Like, what is it's one of the reasons I like Dimitri Mack, and I think, and I get along very well. He's very like pump up other people, like shout out other photographers, do like support other people. This is, you don't have to be afraid of other photographers. You can also like be, I don't know what's the word. I'm not saying don't be suspicious. Have your boundaries. Like you don't let people take advantage of you,
Yeah.
because I think there are people out there who will and will like. You just have to be careful about the give and take in any relationship, um, which is true of any sort of relationship that you're going
Yep.
to have. But there's nothing harmful to your photography journey or your creative journey, whatever type of art or creating you do. They're not going to be hurt by cheering on other people. The other thing I will say, if you want to do this as a business, learn about business.
Yeah.
This is the lesson that I wish I had learned earlier, because if you don't know the business ins and outs, you're gonna you are going to regret it later when you do figure it out. I think it took me, if I would have seen more success sooner had I learned a lesson about running a business, as opposed to focusing entirely on the photography side of it. Because I think I was just sort of like, I got to take great pictures. Great pictures is all it takes. People are going to see my pictures. They're going to hire me. That's all I have to worry about.
Yeah.
Not the case. You also have to worry about running the business, making sure that you're profitable, making sure that you're like investing in the correct marketing, like outreach, things like that. Uh, I will also say, if you're a creative, like running a creative business, ask people why they didn't hire you. This is a kernel that I always try to say. Like, if somebody says they're not going to hire you, I always say, "Thank you for letting me know. Can you tell me why?"
Yeah.
What is and so many people going, "Oh man, I feel so like self-conscious about asking," because they already said they're not hiring you. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Like, they already told you they're not hiring. But you know what you do, like what does happen when they come back? And I will say, probably a third to half of the people that I ask give me an answer. Um, I learn so much about A, my business, B, why people make decisions on hiring somebody, and see what I'm doing in my sales and booking process that I might not realize from what they tell me. I was finding out, like, some people was like, "Oh well, our venue is very dark, and we didn't know." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, and I was sitting there going, like, "What did I not show?" And I'm like, went and looked at my portfolio and realized that a lot of the stuff that I was showing was outside. Like, it hadn't clicked to me
Yeah.
that I wasn't showing them like my flash work, that it wasn't in there. And I was like, "Oh man, I gotta like get some stuff in there that shows that." Or like, people, like, how arbitrary. And like, this goes all the way back to our beginning of our conversation and bringing it full circle to acting stuff, and why people didn't. And if I were acting today, I think I would be able to handle it a lot better. There are so many just arbitrary decisions that people make as to why they hire someone. When I get we hired them because we just had like a better connection. Something about their style just spoke to me. Like, fine. People make those decisions. That is their decision. There's a million reasons why they might make it. It is not something I should take personally, because
Yeah.
that's what I always did. I always like, they're not hiring me. They hate me. My name's on the door. They hate Casey Fatchett because they did not hire Casey Fatchett Photography. They must hate me. No, like, there's a million reasons why they can make, but asking, especially if they've already said no, what's the worst that can happen? It's not like they're not going to hire you again. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is that I've actually gotten jobs from people who, like, oh, we decided to actually like not go with that person, and like, you were the one who actually like wrote us back and said thanks for like letting me know. I hope everything, wishing them the best with their wedding or
Yeah.
whatever. Saying like, I hope that everything really goes well and that things turn out really well with your photographer. I've had people come back to me and hire me for like portraits years later, because they're like, we actually didn't like what we got from our photographer, but we remembered that you said, you know, all the best with the stuff, and decided to come back to you for things in the future. I'm like, well, great. So yeah, my like final words of wisdom. Always ask why people didn't hire you.
Perfect. Well, Casey, thanks for coming on today.
Tyson, thank you for having me.
Where's the best place for people to find you?
Well, it depends on what you want to find. If you want to find my photography work, you can find me at Casey F Photo on Instagram or at fatchett.com, fatchetT.com. That's my wedding work. There's a link there to my non-wedding work if you want to find it. If you want to check out the Nerdy Photographer podcast, go to nerdyphotographer.com or at the Nerdy Photo on all the socials.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Phys Podcast. I hope today's conversation brought you insight, inspiration, or just a fresh perspective on the creative journey. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to follow, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. For updates, behind-the-scene content, and more, please follow us on all social medias at LIFE_OF_PHYS. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links and resources from today's episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living the life of creativity.